Hi, it's Meryl Key from my mystery school, and I wanted to have a look at the Pisces New Moon on the 23rd, 22nd of Feb this year and see what's going on in Wuhan in China. See how they're coping with the coronavirus, how they're coping with the complete shutdown of their city, being closed off to the rest of the world, and how over the course of this new moon phase, which is 2 weeks to 4 weeks, if we can see an improvement in their situation. So what we've got here is the Pisces new moon as it is in Wuhan. At the time of the new moon, which is just right before midnight on the 23rd, we have a Scorpio ascendant. And this will be the flavour of the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Scorpio ascendant is very private, secretive, wears a mask, saves face, hides the darkness of what's going in. It's very protected and shut down. If we look up here, we have Leo on the midheaven for that new moon, and this puts Wuhan right out there in the spotlight, way out in the world. The whole world is watching, and yet everything here is being kept down under the line of the horizon and under the surface. So although the whole world is watching, they're not able to make contact with that world. Their descendant, the place of how they operate in their private world, is in Taurus. And this will be going back to simplicity, going back to basics, focused on the immediate family, work being affected, cash being affected, and privately, people in Wuhan are responding with perseverance and strength. The roots of the chart are in this air sign that disconnects. It's about science. Aquarius will also be around that spread of information, social media, grassroots, community, education. And this is the basis of what's lying underneath the surface for Wuhan at the moment. This spread of information, the effect on the community and the isolation. Now you can see most of our activity for this new moon in Wuhan is focused in this part of the chart. And this is where the new moon actually is in Pisces. It's in the 4th house. The 4th house is the place of home. So the focus for Wuhan is things going on at home, and there is a crisis at home. People are locked in their homes. The whole area is in lockdown and isolated. We have Mercury in there with the Sun and the Moon, and also Neptune. Neptune and Pisces and the Moon are real indicators of viral spread. They operate in damp, wet areas, and with Mercury here as well, we know that this whole focus, holding it in at home and isolating it to home, is also how the communication gets out. Not just the communication of the virus, but the communication of the people of Wuhan. We also have a representative here of the Sun being the father, the Moon the mother, and Mercury being the child. So this sense of families and the whole family unit being connected, being affected. This little bundle here, right in the centre of this section, shows how confined it is. It's actually being gate-kept by Uranus over here in the 6th house and the Moon over here in the 2nd. So all the focus is how people are managing inside their home, and the confusion, the isolation, the confinement and the sacrifice is all indicated there with those planets. Now we have some lifelines being thrown out here, and it's karmic. These beautiful blue lines are the only things stretching out from this place. And it's the North Node up here in the 8th house of Cancer, and the blue line coming over here to Mars, and and the South Node here in the 2nd house and Capricorn. This North Node up to Cancer and the 8th house. The 8th house is a big house and the destiny is big. This rules life, birth, death, rebirth, taxes. It also rules other people's money and other people's resources. So it looks to me there may be resources coming from other people that will help what's going on right here in the epicentre in Wuhan. It also looks in some way that there's a death of a sense of security that's going on over these 2 weeks and next 4 weeks. And somehow there's a destiny in this questioning of how they're being kept safe and how those restrictions have been put in place. And the restrictions have been acted very quickly. You can see with this Mars and Uranus holding down this whole area. The protective measures that have been put in place, Mars is saying, have been very swift. But this connection says there's also a brutality and expediency going on with this. It's almost without question. And if we look at the issues around that clampdown, essentially it comes down to money, status, resources, and over here on this side, daily work. Uranus up here in the 6th house shows how daily routines have been completely disrupted. The whole community has been split and cut off. There's upheaval and shortages of basic needs. So potentially I'm seeing, and I'm guessing this might be from Russia because Russia is associated with Cancer. Russia may be sending some sort of resource down, but there'll be a payback or there's some sort of karmic kickback that's going along with this. If we look at these red lines, these are where more blocks are happening. And it's the same thing, it's got this sense of, you know, really drilling down on this place of home and confining people to their immediate surroundings. So these red lines are challenges to that. See a lot of them coming through from, we've got Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn here in the 3rd house in Capricorn. So for Wuhan, this sort of crisis area of these big planets is in the area of neighbourhood and communication. It's in the schools, not necessarily the university systems, but it's in travel. It's in immediate interactions, short-term neighbourhood interactions. And there's a big problem going on there with these red lines. One is the disruption to the work. Another one is, and this one goes to Venus in the 5th house, the house of self-expression. The kind of public shaming that's going on if people don't obey the rules, if people step outside of their house without a face mask, even if they can't get hold of a face mask. There's been some stories of very strict and very brutal, coldly brutal, clamped down by Chinese authorities to humiliate people who buck the system. This is echoed here also with this red line coming across to Chiron and Lilith, also in the 5th house. This kind of thing is you have to conform. If not, there will be retribution. We move back also to this 3rd house, this place of communication. These lines also make me feel there's a lot of gossip and the social media. We've got Ceres here in Aquarius in this 3rd house. And in one way that can be the drying up of local supplies. Ceres rules food and agriculture and Mother Earth, the abundance, cycles. And she doesn't like being in Aquarius. It's a very dry sign. It's more about technology. So it's possible also this is giving an indication for the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks in Wuhan, of that drying up of supplies in the neighbourhood, drying up of food supplies. But it could also indicate an abundance of social media. And I'm feeling like there's gossip, accusations, there's people looking to see who is in charge that needs to have retribution. And that one's bouncing back over here to, there's a kickback on anyone who doesn't conform to the new rules that have been put in. These guys down here and even these red lines really indicate there's a lot of strength in the neighbourhood for the Wuhan people. There's a lot of resilience. If we look at the outside world, which is up here in the 9th house and the 10th house, there's no planets there. It's all the action is down here. They are cut off from what's going in the outside world, and they've just got a lot of strength and ability to regenerate in that. And with Jupiter down here, things can really inflate. And it's got this problem going on with Venus, which is in one part around money, but also self-esteem, the needs of women. And it's really important that we keep faith, that their faith is starting to crumble a bit, to keep hope. Another thing we know is that the female health workers in China and in the hospitals and camps set up to cope with this crisis, because they've been doing such long shifts and they've been isolated themselves, they've been denied feminine hygiene products and unable to get those supplies. And in one way that's kind of showing up in this Mars Chiron and also our Venus Jupiter in the house of neighbourhood. People coming to support that. There's been donations sent from all around the world to bring more face masks and more of the personal sanitary items that are running really low supply. So as far as spread of the coronavirus, this chart around the Pisces New Moon seems to me that it is contained. The bulk of the problem is focused down and has been restricted, though the effect on the people is causing discontent and people looking for answers, looking for someone to blame in a way, and turning to their own family and their own community for protection. There's not a lot of trust for the authorities in this, and yet it just feels like the authorities are able to use this for some advantage for themselves. I mean that more in the way that the message is getting out, the way it looks, the way it saves face. So I just wanted this to be a quick check-in to the people of Wuhan for this new moon period. And it doesn't look like a lot of change. It doesn't look like an escalation in people infected or even an escalation in people dying. It looks like the situation has been managed with a consequence for the people of the city. And the authorities, the number one priority for the authorities will be around the resources, how other people are able to give them resources, and the effect on daily work, cash flow, trade, daily routines. Wishing all the people in China and in Wuhan in particular the best of luck. If you are on social media, we're looking out for you as well. Thank you. This is Meryl Key from The Heart of Tarot and my Mystery School.